Okay, now we're going to have a look at doing a French seam. French seams are the most expensive and the highest quality seam to make. You would generally use a French seam if you've got very sheer fabric, so organzas, very fine silks, and they are neat on both sides. Now, all other seams up until this point we've put right sides together. So for this fabric, remember right at the very beginning, this is the right side, so we would turn that over and we would do our first seam right sides facing and seam down here. With a French seam, you do it the other way around. So you want to put your wrong sides together, so you're going to flip that over. We're going to put the wrong side and we're going to put those down. Now I'm not going to worry about lining this up particularly because I just want to show you how to do the French seam. We're now just going to seam that, so the most important thing is you've got the right sides facing out, which is opposite to everything we've done up until now. Okay, so we've got wrong sides facing. We're going to put it in the machine and we're just going to seam it like normal, so everything is the same other than we've got the right side facing up. Okay, just going to pull that out. Okay, so we've done our seam, so it's the right side's the fabric facing up. So if we turn this over, we've got the nice neat edge on the inside, which is the wrong side, and we've now got the raw edge on the outside, so we now need to neaten this up. Now the way we do that is we're going to fold this, we cut this down, so you could sew it quite small, but I like to sew it an ordinary seam allowance, and then I just literally cut it down, so that we're cutting both down. With the bound hem, we just cut one side of the seam allowance. This time you cut both sides, so it's the same size. And then we need to go to the iron for this. So we're going to put this to the iron. We're going to fold this out and we're going to iron that seam there. And you're going to iron pushing to the top like that. So you've got a nice seam on the inside. Then what you have to do is we have to flip this over like this. And then we have to push that down, and what we're doing is we want to see that stitched edge at the top, and we're just going to iron that. So you're starting to think that actually we're now catching all of that raw edge on the inside, so it's all on the ironing. So you can see, if I just flip this up, that we've got that seam in there, so on the right side. So now what we've got to do is we are going to, and what's quite good is that I've missed it here a little bit, you can just see where that bit of seam is on the inside. We've got to now sew all the way along here just underneath that seam. So what happens is that this now gets all enclosed inside, so you get this nice finish on the inside, but we get an ordinary stitch line on the outside. So we're going to now stitch that down. If I hold that up to the light, you can probably see possibly where I've got a stitch just along here, so I've got to make sure I stitch just below where that seam allowance is. So I'm going to just do that. I'm going to start my needle just there, and away we go. So now you've got your right sides facing, so that feels like an ordinary seam. And hopefully when we open this out, we shouldn't see any of the raw edges. And there you go. And that just needs an iron. So you can just iron that flat, whichever way you want, like that. So we've got what is essentially looks like a normal seam on this side. When I flip it over, you will see that you have a nice finished neat edge on the inside, and you can make these quite small. So if this was a sheer fabric, you probably would do that seam half the size again, but that is the highest quality seam, and it's the best one for any fabric that is sheer that you can see through. It's the best seam to use, and it's the highest quality, and that's a French seam.